Good evening and welcome to this special talk conducted in collaboration with World University of Design and CreativeEdge by top rankers. Now, this talk is basically conducted to question and to answer topics related to architecture and admission process. We have two esteemed panelists with us today. First being Mr. Shaleen Sharma, who has been practicing as an architect for the last 22 years and has been actively involved in academics. He has his bachelor's of degree from TVB School of Architecture in Delhi, and then he went on to do his master's from UK. Apart from being in academics, he's also a very passionate filmmaker, and his latest film, A for Architecture, is funded by the Council of Architecture and well known in the architecture fraternity. On the second panelist that we have with us is Professor Rajendra Bhatia. Mr. Rajendra Bhatia, Rajendra Bhat sir, as his students lovingly call him, is a 68-year-old gentleman who is a research scholar and editorial board member of a UGC recognized international journal on art and design. He's a practicing artist, a painter and a sculptor, an art teacher and a faculty of design. A passionate teacher of design and architecture, Rajendra sir is associated with CreativeEdge by top rankers. He has been conducting classes for entrance preparation of JEE architecture, NATA, NID, UCEED and NIFT, apart from other competitive exams. The subjects that he covers include color theory, color perception and emotion, rendering of design, human figures, history of art and architecture, and history of fashion. He has a 100% success rate in architecture entrance tests. I welcome both of you, sir. All right. This is basically a question and answer kind of a session wherein all the important questions that students of architecture who start practicing as like who just start this professional study of architecture have in their mind, and this session is conducted to make their probably to clarify their doubts and to make it easier for them. So the first question that we have today is for Professor Shaleen Sharma. And the question is, please highlight about architecture field and the career of a successful architect.
Thank you, Arzu. It's quite a pertinent question, quite understandably coming up as a first question in this discussion. And well, there are a lot of perceptions about the profession of architecture because it's such a wide profession that covers almost everything that is happening in this world and a lot of things which are about to happen in this world. So it's basically a forward-looking profession, in my opinion. So to pinpoint 5-10 points that would sum up the profession of architecture will be like injustice to the field of architecture. So what I'm going to tell about architecture is something that probably very few people or very few aspirants and their families know about. Generally, it is accepted that architecture is a field of making buildings. Well, it is true, but in actuality, what we are doing is we are building up societies, we are building up cities, we are building up states, and finally we are building up a country, so to say. So architecture is one thing that anybody coming from outside this country comes and recognizes this country for. For example, it's generally our past which comes to sort of support us in this nature that Taj Mahal belongs to us, and Fatehpur Sikri belongs to us. Our ancient temples sort of gives us our identity. So they're all architecture, So what are we building for the future? Those are the things which our ancestors have given us, and we are still hanging on to them, saying that yes, our identities. But what is happening to the modern society is something that is left in the hands of the present architects and the coming up breed of architects who will be taking over the baton from us. So I'll say to we should actually look at this profession as something that builds up a very strong society and culture in terms of building. I mean, so so yes, you will be making buildings, you will be planning cities, but another important aspect of architectural education is the sense of consciousness that the students or the practitioners should have, that they are not building this for themselves, they are building it for the future generation also. The entire elements of sustainability is to basically use the resources but leave the resources for the next generation to come and use them. So do not exhaust it. So same, building is a highly resource exhaustive process. So all these aspects, when we look at it, so it makes architecture such a vast field that sometimes you yourself get lost into it. So I would say that the aspirants who are planning to join architecture should look at architecture from that big picture, rather than looking at the picture of making buildings and satisfying themselves. Well, they can do that by making a painting and hanging it in their drawing rooms or in their bedrooms. That is fine. But architecture is a more responsible profession that affects people. So the other day, I was talking to a few students, and I told them that when you do a design, or when you design a house, what do you do? So they said, we just make a house which is beautiful. I said, no, you are basically, what you're doing is you are restricting, or you are planning somebody's movement in a space for the rest of his or her life. But the
Correct.
moment you plan a bedroom and
Hmm.
you put a bed there, the person is going to be using that to sleep every day, every night. And God forbid, if you have not designed it well, the person will be cursing you for the rest of your life. Sometimes sometimes people say that your the architect's job and the doctor's job is the same. But I tell that there is a difference. While the doctor's mistake can be buried or burnt, architect's mistake cannot be buried or burnt. They always stand there. So such is the case of the buildings. If you do a wrong building, it's not going to go away for 200 years, 100 years, 150 years. So we have to be more responsible than the doctors. So anybody
Correct.
approaching this field of architecture should actually think of it as a
Hmm.
very, very serious profession, and not as an extended hobby.
Correct.
So that would be my advice to all the aspirants who are planning to join architecture. So I think that's all
All right.
as far
Yeah.
as comes to my mind.
Yes. So that sums it up pretty nicely. So, coming to the technicalities of joining an architecture college, the next question is for Rajendra sir. Sir, what would be the admission process for architecture colleges in India?
That's a very important and very active point of uh, uh, active point, so to say, because see, in last 5 years or so, the process has changed tremendously.
Correct.
Firstly, I would also like to promote the architecture as a career. Um, Over and above what you see it uh, as the responsibility of the person who is taking up architecture, um, uh, this one career is honored by Government of India as a gazetted rank. I mean, all architects are supposed to be registered with Government of India, and that's why this is a 5-year course.
Hmm.
And the admission process in these 406 architecture colleges is not that easy. Like you need to clear up your 10 plus 2 examination or 10 plus 3 diploma examination. And on other hand, you have to take the entrance test. There are two entrance tests which are being conducted by the authorities. One is JEE B, that is the JEE paper 2, mainly conducted by the JEE board, and the other one is NATA, National Aptitude Test for Architecture. And
Yes.
these two tests, this year only, they have made it a point that the candidate can take help of either of the two results and get into an architecture colleges. Either of the two, that means JEB Arc and NATA
Hmm.
plus 12th or 10 plus 3 diploma.
Hmm.
In both these cases, of course, they have to have um, 45% mark. Again, this is a change from what it used
Hmm.
to be till last year. And only for this year, they have brought in the mark to 45% for from either 10 plus 2 or 10 plus 3, that is diploma. And of course, you have to clear NATA examination or JEE examination. The minimum number for clearing NATA is 70 out of 200. That means 35%. Now, in the process, they give weightage to both these exams, that is 12th and NATA,
Hmm.
equal. In the sense, they give 50% weightage to 12th and 50% weightage to the NATA examination for forming your merit score and merit
Hmm.
list. The way you can have the merit list or merit score formed is by adding up the two percentage. Suppose your higher secondary score is, let's say, 90% and your NATA score is 140 from 200. So what you have to do is take a percentage of from the NATA score. That means you have to take 70 marks as your merit score marks of 70%, and you have to add 90% of your 12th. This makes your score as 160 as your merit score, and that will be fitted
Okay.
into the mm, the final rank, the merit rank. Apart from this, the second step that you have to take is to look into the authority who is finally giving admission in their state. That means Director of Technical Education for all the colleges except the deemed universities and deemed colleges. Deemed universities and deemed colleges, as per the rules of the state government, have their allocation of seat. Some of
Hmm.
them may have more than 50% as their seat, which they can offer to candidates from all over India. The idea
Hmm.
of having this is to have better candidate to be admitted to um, their institute. So that way, the candidate in the first case could apply with DTE of that um, particular place, or can apply with the deemed university directly. And for
Okay.
that matter, in case you have to, let's say you want to have admission in Maharashtra, or
Hmm.
for that case in Gujarat, you
Hmm.
have to apply with the Director of Technical Education in those states. By the way, there are uh, nodal agencies in certain states, like in Gujarat, instead of DTE, Director of Technical Education,
Hmm.
the agency is ACPC,
Okay.
Admission Council of Professional Courses. So
Hmm.
they take care of the admission in Gujarat state, but
All right.
they are not responsible for the seat already allocated to the deemed university. They can give the seats directly. So for that matter, the candidate has to apply directly to the
Hmm.
college, to the university. So
Okay.
these two things are there. Once you have applied with DTE or with the deemed university, they firstly verify your credentials, and then, of course, you have to have your domicile certificate also along with it, so that your credential do certify as to you belong to that state or you don't belong to that state. It doesn't matter if you're not belonging to one particular state and you want to study in a particular state, you still can get on. So that is there. But
Okay.
thing is, in case of DTE, they give first preference to their own state candidate, and there is then other
Hmm.
state list also that they will be entertaining. So
Hmm.
not that it is all full quota given to one particular state. Every state body has to have outside state quota as well. So that is how it is worked out. And then, of course, depending on how one DTE works, like they first publish only their own state candidate list, and then they in the second list they allow the outside state, or in the second list they allow the reserve category, or they can reverse it. First they announce the reserve category, and then they announce the first category, and then in the third list that they announce the outside state candidates. Likewise, you have to wait. You have to keep patience
Hmm.
for your application. They give you to a list to fill up your preferences, and then as per the preferences and your ranking,
Hmm.
you get the seat of your liking, or maybe
Hmm.
your second liking or third liking.
Okay.
Right.
All right, sir. All right. Thank you.
One more
So,
point I would like to add here.
hmm.
See, these architecture colleges, particularly the deemed ones, have their limitation of seat.
Hmm.
So not only the higher ranking students, earlier candidate approaching them may also
Hmm.
get the benefit. So one has
Okay.
to be vigilant about if you want to, let's say, study in your college, World
Hmm.
University of Design.
Hmm.
The candidate should apply fast.
Hmm.
They cannot increase the seat without a prior permission from Council of Architecture. So the candidate have to be vigilant in application and accepting the offer.
Hmm.
So
Correct.
those
Correct.
things are to be taken into account.
Yes, sir. All right. Thank you, sir. Thank you. The next question that we have is also something that we get a lot from the students. So, what is the difference between a government college, a private college, and a deemed architecture college? If Shalin, sir, if you can just elaborate on that.
But by my perspective on this would be that in terms of the functioning of an institute, they might be termed as a deemed
Hmm.
university or a private state university or a state university or a central university.
Hmm.
This is more or less to do with the functioning part of a particular university under whose rules and regulation do they come under.
Hmm.
But if you'll see that it does not mean that if an architectural college exists under a government university, it will have more benefits as compared
Correct.
to the deemed
Hmm.
university or vis-a-vis any other university. So it's basically a functioning pattern.
Hmm.
But I think what the student should be more concerned while choosing the college is that where is the faculty coming from.
Hmm.
So each college has its own website, no matter what kind of a university it is, what in terms of its nomenclature. But it is important to see that what philosophy and what kind of a bouquet of faculty are offering the particular course. So in that case, the student should be more vigilant in choosing the college and not base it entirely. Yes, there will be a difference in a fees pattern which might suit a particular student or which might not suit a particular student. But having said that, one thing is common, that among the generally the perception comes that the private universities are very very expensive. But on the other hand, there are a lot of good private universities which, even though they are expensive, but they readily give a lot of scholarships also.
Hmm. Correct.
So, one has to be very vigilant when it comes to that. A good student is always a preference for any university.
Hmm.
And I think it is the right of a good student to try its case of admission with any university. And I think to a certain extent, we all universities have room to make exceptions. And we have put processes in place where, there are a lot of private universities which have a kind of a loan scheme also, in which there are companies which pay the fee, but then you can pay them monthly, or without any interest or something like that. The interest is paid by the university. So all these things are there. So I think it is important that after clearing the NATA exam or the JEE exam, the student should also delve into these details. Having crossed that path, now I think that entire process should be very clear to the student. And my advice would be, do not go with the perception that we need to get admitted into a government college, we need to get into a good private university. So that should not be the criteria, judging.
Coming to competitive exams that are held in India for architecture, we have JEE, BArch, and then we have NATA. So Rajendra sir, can you please elaborate on what is the difference between these two exams that we have?
Uh, well, Arzu, the NATA started way back in 2006, and it used to be earlier, the exam would get conducted in a hall, of
Mm,
course, approved by Council of Architecture, and you could give as many as 3 attempts every year, and you could also take the date for uh, taking up the exam. In the
mm,
sense, every day there would be morning, evening shift, and the exam could have been taken. So that was long back story,
mm,
and then came NATA with center-based exam. Center-based exam also two parts. One was the aptitude and maths. The other part was the creative ability. Creative
mm,
ability, that means you had to really take a question and solve it with your sketch.
mm,
Maybe you are asked a memory drawing question, you are asked a two-dimension design question, or a 3D question. So this was with NATA earlier.
okay. Mm,
This was till 2019.
mm,
The demarcation of the numbers allocated
mm,
went up to creative ability 125 out of 200, and aptitude reduced to only 50%, and
mm,
sorry, 50 marks, that is 25%, and the mathematics and other, particularly physics, this would be asked only for 25 marks out of 200. So this
mm,
was the situation in 2018 and 19 in NATA. Then came Corona and the pandemic, and the situation totally changed.
mm,
Everything was asked um, as an aptitude, design aptitude, and general aptitude.
yeah.
And it all became online examination. So
Mm,
much so, the first examination after pandemic was implemented was like you had an option to give it from home.
mm,
I don't want to really blame, because that was only way they could have taken the exam. But suddenly, what we found that many of ordinary student, not very learned, also could score very high marks. But that happened during the first exam of pandemic. Thereafter, it started streamlining, and see, every year then there used to be two exam. This year and even last year, NATA examination have been 3 attempts altogether, and they are not linked. The marks are like you could have the best of the two uh, marks taken up,
mm,
or you can have still, like this year they have made it like uh, best of the two if you are taking 2 attempts, and if you want to give 3 attempts, then the average of best of the two would be your final score to be taken into the merit score. However, JEE arc, as you rightly pointed out, has been conducted by JEE people, and that examination has got its pattern, and it has been continued till now. It has been 200 out of 400 marks allocated for aptitude part. That includes the architecture awareness and general ability, and even some question on English language. Not that NATA do not have question on English language, they too have got question on English language as well, taken up as a part of the GAT, general ability test. Well, coming back to JE only, 200 marks for the aptitude and general ability, 100 marks for mathematics, and 100 marks for drawing.
Yeah.
So that is creative ability test. CAT we call it as. So any which ways, JEBR do not announce real marks taken up. There always have been percentile and your merit rank. That means they are calculating your merit rank. So that could be the uh, and anyway, the difference between the two again is like JEE BR is meant for taking admission in government colleges. Most of the government colleges recognizes JBR. NATA, all the colleges in private sector, they recognize NATA score. And without passing NATA, till last year there was a rule, without passing NATA, you cannot take admission into any of the college, whether government or private. Now the rule has changed. You can have admission passing out JEBR or NATA and still have admission in private sector. So that's the difference between the two. I would also like to emphasize that NATA has been conducting after pandemic all the exam uh, totally online. Of course, now it is center based online, and they have deleted this creative ability, the sketching part so far. But uh, I think since their pattern was to have more number given to sketching before pandemic, sooner or later they will bring back the sketching part again, which I believe, or maybe it's just my personal thought, is a better option to test the candidate on the ability of doing a course of architecture.
Okay. All right, sir. Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Yeah.
Shalin sir, since you have an experience of studying architecture both in India and abroad, the next question is basically, do you think there's a difference between the architecture education system in India and abroad?
There is a marginal difference because you see the context changes. So generally the course of architecture, if we leave history and environment, which is a larger context, the design has to be executed in a particular site which belongs to a particular context. So in that sense, yes, the approach changes. Then nowadays the technology is primarily the same anywhere, so that still remains the same, but the lifestyle, the culture, the climatic conditions, now I would say that is also now happening, that we have been importing a lot of glass buildings in our context also, which is not at all suitable. But so more or less there is a marginal difference which is left now, because this is the time of globalization, and the whole world is now a big family, so to say. So we'll be facing all the problems together also, whether it be climatic or now the temperatures have gone up in Europe also. Spain is sizzling with 50-60 degrees Celsius, more than that we experience in Delhi. So I think the world is becoming a big singular community. So but having said that, the differences remain the same. But one good thing is that now no particular, when you say abroad, no particular country abroad will stop you from pursuing or taking your education further from where you have left it here. So I'm
Hmm.
referring to master's courses mainly. So
Hmm.
there are a lot of students who do their BArch, but then for the masters, they basically take up their bachelor's little further
Hmm.
and then later on to PhD. So, but if you're starting your bachelor's from abroad, then maybe everything remains the same primarily, but your approach will certainly change because they would be having a different philosophy of approach. You will be designing in a different context altogether. But if you learn the approach of dealing with people, culture, and context, then whether you learn it there or here, I think you'll be able to pursue right architecture, if I may use that word, quote unquote right,
Hmm.
because it's not that there have been a lot of foreign architects who have done extremely well here. For example, Joseph Allenstein, Laurie Baker, they have basically they adapted to this context much better than our Indian forefathers of design,
Hmm.
architectural design. So it's very subjective to say that it will be different. You can still be a person who's focused on India, but wherever you go and study, it doesn't matter as long as you're doing it consciously. So
From is good in
I have
what you're
got,
doing.
Bhatia sir wants to say something.
yeah,
Yeah.
I have got a question to ask you.
Hmm.
That is more on the topic I said, architects are gazetted people. So, is an undergraduate pass out student of UK allowed to practice in India the architecture, and will he get his registration in the Gazette of India,
No,
and an Indian, uh,
no
like like you do an MBBS degree abroad, you have to pass
the
uh,
exams.
Exam year.
an exam here. But do they have some exam here in India for the candidate who has passed out from UK or Italy or for France, whatever?
No, I don't think so. Because even for architects here, like if you have a RIBA accreditation, Royal Institute of British Architects, you have to keep on giving exams there to renew it. In our case, we just get a one-time, lifetime council number, and we can sit with it for the rest of our lives. So when there is no system for us to sort of prove that we still remain as a valid architect to practice. So outside, yes, we are allowing. I think RIBA accredited architects are allowed to work here. If I'm not mistaken, maybe I think Charles Correa was RIBA accredited, so he has worked here. So I think RIBA is allowed, and I'm sure a couple of them would be allowed. But it would be an interesting search to find out that. But otherwise, without that, they cannot come and practice here.
I have been trying this out on internet. I do not get any answer to this. Maybe I have to write down to Council of Architecture for uh, for having an authentic answer onto it. What a
Yes,
candidate do, and on reverse, can a candidate now that there is a big difference even in the number of years in which they allow a degree, like Manchester School of Architecture give an undergrad degree in 3 years and PG in
yes,
1 year. So in 4 year, you have got MR, and that's a RIBA college, as you said.
yes.
So big difference. And
Yeah, that's it's not allowed here. It is primarily because of this reason, and also the Indian students who go and do masters abroad. So 1 year of masters is not valid in India.
Hmm.
So the council does not recognize a 1 year master's
Masters.
program, except for I think few universities. They have very clearly mentioned. I think Glasgow is one,
Yeah.
Massachusetts is one. So there is a list of universities of which of whose masters is valid here.
Accepted here. Yeah.
So
Otherwise, it's not.
it is not, which is available on the council website. One can go
Hmm.
and check. So they do not mention 1 year or 2 years of masters, but they clearly say that 1 year's masters is not valid. But then there is a list of universities
University.
abroad which they say if you do a master's from there, it's valid, even if it is 1 year or 2 year, doesn't matter.
Yeah. Next question, sir. Rajendra, sir, this is for you. What would you recommend? A government or a private college in India for studies, and why?
Also, I think at this point in time, I will go with what Shalin sir has already given, as there is hardly any difference between even a college in abroad and in India. Why talk of government colleges
And private.
and private colleges? However,
Hmm.
I will leave it on the candidate. Uh, and my point is, I would prefer to suggest a
Hmm.
college which is dynamic. A couple of days back, when I was one-to-one talking to Shalin sir, he said that his university is young and there are universities which are old and which are new. So
Hmm.
a dynamic college is my recommendation, not a government or a private sector. Dynamic
Irrespective.
with that, with the sense that the course of architecture is dynamic,
Correct.
is changing every day.
Hmm.
So one should be very vigilant. What
Hmm.
syllabus are you adopting? And how
Correct.
fast can you change your syllabus?
Hmm.
That is more important
Correct.
because um, if you are still waiting for an approval on a
Hmm.
particular subject to change your syllabus,
Hmm.
and by the time you bring the changes in syllabus as per the evolvement
Hmm.
of the course,
Hmm.
the change itself has become stale.
Hmm.
You got my point? Like
Got
any
it, sir.
changes,
Yes, sir.
uh,
Hmm.
let's just take it like
Hmm.
a clay brick
Hmm.
and a concrete brick.
Hmm.
Difference?
Hmm.
There are institutes who have become made the clay brick to
Hmm.
be stale now.
Hmm.
They are more working onto the advancement. So,
Correct.
how would
Correct.
you like to go? Like, will
Hmm.
you like to take up the course or
Hmm.
redesign the wheel?
Hmm.
I mean, reinvent the wheel? Or would
Hmm.
you like to get on with the dynamic course? Get on
Correct.
with the university which is ready to change the course
Constantly
immediately
changing. Yeah.
after it has been innovated.
Hmm.
The subject has
Correct.
been innovated. So I think that's where the candidate has to be very careful, has to be
Hmm.
very sure that yes, I am going with a university which is
Hmm.
ready to change for good,
Hmm.
for
Perfect.
good.
Correct. Hmm.
And that's where I would recommend choose your college,
Hmm.
not only, and yes, logistic
Hmm.
and your pocket, that also
Hmm.
matters a lot.
Of course. Yes. Yes.
Yeah, you cannot, in India particularly, we have to look
Hmm.
into the candidate. Maybe he's very talented. If
Hmm.
there are universities who cannot give him a scholarship and he's not enough with his pocket, like he
Hmm.
is having difficulty in studying
Hmm.
the graduation and post-graduation
Hmm.
programs. So either the university take care of him, like
Hmm.
mostly the government um, colleges would
Hmm.
give such students some
Hmm.
kind of a aid or something like that,
Hmm.
or he has to choose a university as per his liking, who is
Hmm.
ready to give him the aid.
Hmm.
So these are two
Correct.
important aspects I would like
Hmm.
to point out here. So
Hmm.
forget about discriminating between government
Hmm.
and private, because
Private colleges.
that is not the
Old
matter.
aged. No,
Yeah,
it
yeah,
doesn't work anymore. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. That's a very good answer, sir.
Thank you.
Shalin, sir, how do you think the National Education Policy 2020 is going to affect the education scenario of architecture in India?
The architectural education scenario in India.
Yeah.
So obviously the education scenario will affect in the end the architecture, what is happening. So NEP 2020 has come up with a lot of refreshing ideas as far as the architectural education goes. So the first idea is basically to find a lot of exit plans. So the student can exit after 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, and in between they can take a break for a couple of years and then come back and do the course again, start from where they left it. So that way is it caters to uh, gives a student a kind of a break in which if the student wants to explore, like we generally see that there is a kind of an urge to know more, but an urge to know more outside the system of education that happens in an architectural college. Now, that may happen after 2 years of education, that may happen after 3 years, 4 years. I don't know, because generally we see that during the fourth and the fifth year, there are maximum dropouts.
Correct.
Historically speaking, that it is not because I'm generally talking about valid dropouts. I'm not talking about dropouts because of marks reason or things like that. But valid dropouts,
Correct.
I'll say that they want to learn more. There is an urge because, as I said in my first section, that it's a huge field. It's a vast field, and 5 years is not enough to learn everything. So, and our curriculum is also not equipped enough to teach everything which is happening. So the
Correct.
students go in different directions. So at one point, if a student feels that maybe I need to take a step out of this and explore this thing on my own, so that sometimes the rigid structure of this 10 semester curriculum might not allow the student to explore, which NEP has now enabled, that the student should be allowed to take this exit and come back and catch the train from where he or she had left it. So which I think is quite a refreshing idea, even though if you will ask me, I would suggest the students to finish it and then explore the world. So it's my opinion. The student should feel fair, because there is no point covering up the other 4 semesters thinking about something else and just finishing it for this heck of finishing it. But yes, that is one aspect. And second aspect is that the the integration of other allied design fields with architecture, which is another very interesting thing that the NEP is suggesting, or rather than it is recommending, that there should be some kind of a marriage between other design fields with architecture, because architecture involves all of them into it. Whether you talk about product design, whether you talk about AI, VR, or all these new things coming in, to have architecture isolated from these would not make it holistic, as the education system should plan for it. So now NEP says that all colleges, universities should make available these opportunities to the students.
Correct.
So much so that the standalone architectural colleges will find it little difficult unless they have affiliated universities who are doing it, because otherwise how will they add on to these things when they don't have a department like that. So these two aspects of NEP are very, very interesting, and I think and there is a lot of room for experimentation that NEP allows. The introduction of innovation labs, which it has suggested, the innovation labs that can get government funding, irrespective whether you're a private university or you're a government university. All the ministries have opened up and they've welcomed innovation, and they're suggesting that if you have an innovation lab, they can financially help you. They can give you resources in terms of experts. So all these things are adding a lot of value to architecture, and I think which was long due. So I would welcome NEP 2020, and we'll see that how we also as institutes adapt to it. We've already started doing it, but I think we will catch pace probably in a couple of years' time. And we ourselves are actually we have applied for a couple of projects. Within the Indian context and in the UK context. So let's see, the results will be out later this year or maybe earlier next year. So we would be actually very actively involved in this innovative labs now.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you. With that, we'll come to the last question for the day, which is for Rajendra, sir. Which is what do you think, what changes have come in NATA and JEE B over the last few years?
Also, I think I have uh, uh, answered this
Already.
question in my
Yeah.
my earlier question, except for a few points uh, like they have in the visual um, perception. The question has come from a neonatal question kind of a thing to a real adult question now. They were earlier giving certain pictures and find out the difference, like you would get a question in some comic magazines. But now the question is like they show a picture for 45 seconds and they really want your memory to answer it, because they after 45 seconds they remove the picture and then ask you question on that memory. So I have also found some tricks for that, how to solve such questions. Those are there in my other videos. So I won't go into solving those questions right now, but those kind of advancement that NATA has brought in. However, JBR has increased the number from 50 out of 400 for creative ability test to now 100 out of 400, that is 25% now in the creative ability test. So these two important aspects that I did not speak in my earlier answer are the valid ones, of course. They are important.
Okay. All right. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Rajendra, sir. Thank you, Shaleen, sir, for joining us and for your time and for the valuable inputs that you've given us. And I'm sure this is going to help a lot of aspiring architects. It has cleared a lot of doubts for all the students and also for the parents. So I'm sure it's going to help them. And thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.